Since when did I have 2 basements? You know, I find it odd that I was able to find the diary at the door? Someone take it? So let's assume up front that this diary we're talking about was written by the lodger, this guy. I don't know what his age is, but it suggests that he does in fact have some relationship with this girl who now we know is the Invisible One. He's afraid of the Invisible One? Obviously his relationship with this girl was either his or someone else's was strange, to put it mildly. From what I remember, supposedly he had a kid, right? Because either he was the kid that entered the program, or he let his kids enter the program. Which I think both would cause the trauma that would definitely cause the kind of situation we see before us. I don't know how to confirm which story is true, though. And of course, I think the much bigger question we have here is, what is this program? Clearly it was not something that... It sounds like some kind of MK Ultra experiment that they performed on all the children? In this specific town, all over this country? They did mention Civil War. It definitely wasn't a popular program. I mean, yeah, they were stealing all the kids. But, and he doesn't even know how this girl relates to it. I think I've at least seen places that suggest that... Let's face it, based on this guy's background, he is the kind of person that could be working on something that would be considered a program. It's just, the diary doesn't necessarily point in that direction. Not from what I can tell. I think the lesson here is that no matter what has happened, this individual is trying to escape this clearly terrible world that is around him at the moment. As if this entire scenario that we have before us, this whole, the government kidnapped all of these children and did something to them, is just too hard to accept, and so we're trying to get away from that reality. And maybe that's why we're scared of the invisible, because it's something that reminds us of that reality. That something terrible has happened. Something especially terrible because we don't exactly know what it entails. It's the fear of the unknown. And now we're here kind of living in this bubble trying to protect ourselves from what's really out there. And all of these actual details, and every time we see the girl, we keep getting a piece of something. I don't think it's something that we're ever actually going to understand, at least as the player, but maybe this guy does. This girl is like his last connection to what's actually out there, and I guess despite she must have been through a fricking lot. And this guy has too, from a different perspective, maybe the same perspective. And whether she is actually there or is still just kind of like a product of our imagination that's trying to get us to you know, get out of our own heads. if that actually makes sense, then so be it. I mean, game that you always have a choice between going out and discovering something you don't understand, or just going home. You can walk outside and go back in, and the game progresses. And you are not punished for that. But there is a benefit, or at least something different you get from trying to learn more, and kind of remove yourself from this isolation. I'm starting to wonder if the guests happen to be so contorted and just plain odd because that's how the lodger sees those from the outside now. I mean, considering that his whole a huge part of his life is just kind of like turned upside down, and that he has very good reason to just kind of like lose faith in the world with what happened to him. But I guess this girl happens to be like his one last connection of something that seems, even though she isn't like in good shape either, at least she seems like a positive force. That's about as close as any one of these memories has actually felt related to what's been going on, but I think if we're talking about, hey, stuff's going on in his head, I think we kind of covered that with the whole brain map anyway. But you know what? Whatever works. There are definitely more pieces to it. Whether they're useful pieces is up for debate. I mean, the symbolism is extreme, to put it lightly, and foreign in a way, at least to me. This is Ice Pick Lodge, remember, Russian game developers that could have knowledge of things that just would not be familiar to someone like me, but nonetheless, it makes for a very interesting and unnerving experience. I'm starting to wonder if we're just kind of like stuck in his head, because that's where he's at right now, trying to figure out really whether he can let anyone back in again. He definitely has mentioned just a fear of guests, the invisible, things from the forest. Maybe in the sense that he's revisiting what happened to him. Kinda lucky there. Rinse and repeat. You got anything to say before we head out on this episode and call it good? Actually, no. Someone already told us this. Okay, so you're saying that we are sleepy. Sure. I can see that. And that means they aren't ghost spirit things, but they are something else. But what? Gosh, this is something I'm just thinking about now. But what if all these things that keep chasing us are real, not because they're actually like there as we think we see them, but because they're, I mean, they have to be in our head, right? Do they just represent the memories that we've kind of just been suppressing this whole time? Because it seems like we didn't know what the frick was going on until we started to read the diary again. I mean, the diary was gone. That's so far away. I think if there's one thing we've established in this game is that this guy has a good reason to be scared of everything and is currently still basically scared of everything.
Why be so afraid of me?
I tell you what, I'm gonna go until I die.
I know.
If I don't, we'll start the next episode with the awake day sequence, whatever you want to call it. As much as we've seen all kinds of crazy stuff that's really hard to, figure out, basically, as to what the true meaning is, I think what I'm basically going to say with a lot of this stuff that's just kind of like, what is...
I see you now.
Kind of just accept the fact that it's messed up because sometimes the only thing you need to get out of it, or the only thing you need to understand is, this is messed up because all of this is messed up.
Hey,
This entire situation. And that much is at least easy to recognize.
I hear you.
Your taunts are only affecting me slightly. I think the main thing that I'm getting from the background voices so far is that they're... I don't know. It almost seems like they're trying to tell us that we aren't alone. Does that make sense?
Hello?
No one's home. Oh my gosh, do you see the handprints on the wall? That's a bad sign. I know it was kind of minimal because clearly I'm not in that room.
Do you hear this? Where? You?
Clock's jiggling back and forth. Somehow this is working for the entire effing time.
Hey, you.
Another game called Everything's Alive. This is a game to be played in silence. 2 hours before sunrise, gather the guests. Everybody chooses a human for themselves. After that, the guests should move silently through the house. All the guests are focused on their own business. How do you get guests to do this? Sooner or later you will hear a voice. Here, birdies, gather around the marble nest. Then everyone should freeze in place. If the rustling continues, that means the game is over and you should stop immediately. The invisible one is among you. We're gonna have to figure out what the invisible one actually means. Eventually. We did. I think so, at least. I don't know what... These games are still just frickin' weird, though. Do you play them as a child? You shouldn't.
Limbo corrottide, Gesaradarattin lepederema, Tirpulle canta, Redemele borsto gori, Lepetaricete folle, Elevargate paratari, Tafaricate fatlo, Gesaradarattin lepederema, Secretary to Pelicata, Elevarinimana, Irricate farata, Tirpulle canta, Elevarinima.
Whatever you say, buddy. Whatever you say.